Suresh, good afternoon. What do you make of this piece of news? Soda ash prices finally, after being strong, finally seeing some bit of a U-turn. If you have a view on the producers or you have a view on a couple of these consumers, Nalco, for example, aluminium companies, they as well consume soda ash among other industries. Your take?
Afternoon, Nigel. No, absolutely. I think it was in a cycle of its own. And as Sonal pointed out, I think the pricing was very much in favor of producers over the last few quarters. Now, with expectations in terms of demand softening, we've obviously heard a bit from the Tata Chemical commentary as well when it comes to its European operations, with the kind of demand trends that are expected to go down, and the rest of the globe probably softening in terms of demand as well. Commodity prices will soften off from the peaks that you've probably seen. So I think a major component for Tata Chem and GHCL, as Sonal was pointing out, does come from soda ash. The interesting element, Nigel, here is that the inventory levels for soda ash are expected to be still in a deficit. So I think it's just the expectations of the next few months where prices actually start correcting in terms of demand-supply dynamics. But at the end, as you rightly pointed out, I think user industries like detergents, solar glass manufacturers, I think you've got a reasonable amount of market share that these producers can probably cater to, and demand can come back with a bang. But with demand softening, with the expectations in terms of prices coming off, with demand coming off as well, I think the obvious reaction in terms of both the EBITDA reported on this particular segment, which is quite significant for both these companies in particular, I think would probably start taking a tad bit of a hit on a quarter-on-quarter basis. So yeah, I think a key pivot level for Tata Chemicals, I think we do hold that as a disclaimer in our global focus lists. 1150 is very, very key for Tata Chemicals to take out, to probably have the momentum continue. Otherwise, I think it might be a sideways move or probably a time-wise correction for both these stocks.
Any thoughts on Vedanta and what's going on today? The stock is down 4.5%, very large turnover compared to what it typically sees. What's spooked the street? I know on Friday it did well, but anything that you've picked up today on Vedanta?
Absolutely. I know nothing in particular. But again, I think it's a typical cycle for metal companies in general. I think what probably happens with the dollar index at this point of time, I think is going to clearly play a pivotal role. But why the stock has tanked with a good move on Friday, I think I have no clue, frankly, at this point of time.
Okay. Mayuresh, hi. Good afternoon. Will the PSU Bank move give more, yield more? Or do you think now it's time to get a little cautious, purely from a trading perspective?
So Prashant, afternoon. I think the move has been phenomenal over the last few weeks. And quite a few stocks came on our market radar, including the likes of the State Bank, Bank of Baroda, of India, and even an Indian bank from lower levels as well. So I think a large part of the move, if you frankly ask me, is gestated in the price. But I think key pivot levels on the O'Neill methodology have been taken out. So SBI, as an example, I think the key pivot levels have been taken out after the big move that we probably saw today. But largely, I think the kind of numbers that these banks are posting and the commentary that is probably coming through, you look at the asset quality, pressures have come off quite significantly over the last few quarters. Loan growth has been stupendous. I still remember reading an article a few days back where I think because of lesser liquidity in the system, a lot of banks are obviously opting out for CDs within the system itself. Yes, there will be a repricing in terms of demand deposits as well. And therefore, I think the management commentary in terms of NIMs probably staying in the range of the next few quarters is going to be key. For a few of these PSU banks, Prashant, specifically the mid-tier ones, I think if the loan growth continues the way it is, I think capital raising should be an option that will come through. And because of that, even SBI's numbers, I think, have been phenomenal. But I think on two counts, it still needs a little bit of more perspective. I think the demand growth or the deposit growth has been just 9 or 10%. And therefore, with rates hiking up, what kind of impact does it have on NIMs? And the capital adequacy stays around 9.53. So at some stage, they will have to come in for the market for some kind of an equity raise, and therefore dilution in terms of the overall equity base that they probably carry. No doubt, I think the banks have done phenomenally well, but I will probably wait for some pullbacks on stock like State Bank, even an Indian bank. But these mid-cap private banks also should be kept an eye on. Banks like Federal Bank have posted a brilliant set of numbers, and the commentary has been very big.
Would buy even the smaller private sector banks on pullbacks, or even at current levels, it's good to buy right now? Say a federal bank, which you referred to.
So ICICI looks very, very good, Rima, at this point of time. It's around 3% off to the pivot. So I think a 3% move on ICICI Bank would get it very, very close to the pivot as we track it at O'Neill. So that would ensure that a lot of supply probably is gestated. Numbers have been phenomenal for the bank as well. And generally, I think we probably stick with leaders as per our mechanism as well. So on the larger names, obviously ICICI, something like a federal banks like an Indian, Bank of Baroda, on pullbacks towards the nearest moving averages. And even State Bank, a little bit of a pullback and a consolidation would be key in terms of an entry points.
500 points on the Nifty Bank. That's what's taking the Nifty higher. It's going to be a good close, actually, because we started off at around 18,255 odd. Then we slid down to around 18,110. And now, in fact, we're holding at around 18,220 odd. Pretty good move is what we've seen on the index. Well, Mayuresh, I wanted to ask you about one theme. That's the hospital theme. A couple of these stocks have come off the high point. You had Rainbow Hospitals as a pediatric hospital, which did pretty well. But what's your sense? I think your house view, you'll have done a fair bit of research on hospitals. Which stock do you like from there?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting space, Nigel. And whether we like to say it or not, I think in a recession environment or softening environment, this should hold up. So I think one of the stocks as a disclaimer that we like is Max Healthcare. If you probably put out the statistics in terms of stacking up on top line growth, in terms of return ratios, in terms of the average revenue per operating bed, the length of stay, and therefore I think the kind of numbers that Max Health has put out consistently, and even the past quarters numbers that have just come through, have been very, very good in our opinion. The average revenue per bed on an annualized basis is phenomenal. What you're probably looking in terms of extension of further beds with an asset-light model. They've got certain capacities to be added across their hospital chains, including the one in Nanavati in Mumbai as well. And therefore, I think the kind of numbers that they're posting is a testimony in terms of their EPS growth, and that clearly reflects on the EPS ranking at MarketSmith as well. Therefore, I think the ROEs that this company reports has been exceptional. The other stocks also are attractively placed, but in our opinion, at this point of time and juncture of the market, Max Health probably remains a stock pick with a clear disclaimer that the recommendation has been given out to clients. Clients may have holdings in stocks.
Any thoughts on names like Amara Raja, which is, even now after the massive move we've seen in the last two sessions, it's 600 or so basically right now. And the high was early 2021 high was 1,050 or so. But has anything changed here in names like this, or is this the market finding, some of these beaten down names and bidding them up? Are there reasons backing some of these moves up, in your opinion?
So, Prashant, I think it's a mix of both, right? I think any announcement that probably happens with the EV part, and in the quarter one numbers itself, they had announced the plans to probably have the lithium-ion plant going through. So again, I think the capex that they're expected to do over the next few quarters for this plant specifically would probably give them an edge. And it's not just Amara Raja. I think you probably look at Amara Raja and Exide, very, very few pointers of differentiation, very close and similar to margins around 10 and 12% kind of a band. Balance sheet from a debt perspective or a leverage perspective is very, very minimal for both these companies, or actually negligible for both of them. Both are probably expected to put up their plants as well. The exposure that they've probably got, obviously Exide has a larger pie in terms of leadership when it comes to market share, both for PVs and two-wheelers as well. But Amara Raja does have a significant leadership positions in both UPS and the tower business as well. So very clear, very indifferent points of differentiation between these two companies. But I think it's more to do in terms of them probably expected to do well in this current scenario of the combustion engine batteries and foraying into the e-batteries as well, which probably will then ensure that these players with the kind of capacities and distribution network that they've got take a lion's share in the Indian market itself as these capacities come on board and EV actually takes off over the next few years. So I think some tailwinds for both these stocks very, very clearly with Amara.
All right, Mayuresh. So tailwinds there, market choosing to recognize some of that stuff now. Appreciate you joining in, Mayuresh. Have a good holiday tomorrow. And of course, we'll see you back soon again. Thanks indeed.